Rugby and then student life, yeah. I was always all about, it all started with rugby. It all started, my ball's over there. It all started with rugby. But, yeah. I was like, okay, like, I've been told my whole life, like, you would be so good at rugby. Like, I'd always heard it in the back. I'd always watched rugby with, like, my uncles and stuff. So I was very familiar with the sport, just being first gen.
Anything else, the swimming, the basketball, was that just felt more natural in his time that you had put in?
I did. I swimming, basketball. I did tennis. I'm an African mother. So I played every single sport. I played the violin just because the university was changing so much to adjust to COVID that it was like they were fighting with themselves to figure it out, and we were fighting with them to figure. Like, you know what I mean? That's just the end of it. Like, like a lot of emails, as I said, like. It just worked. Like, if there was a vision, and like one thing about me, I'm very good at visualizing and then like putting a list. So I visualize like what do I want, what do I want, and listing, and then how am I going to get there.
I think the minute I stepped on a practice field for rugby, the calling happened.
An 8-year plan to be on the team, and I was in it within 2 years.
Don't wait until you are a pro to be a pro. Right.
And I walk around with a rugby ball sometimes and they're like, what is this child on?
It looks like it was heavy. Yeah.
It's up. It's not up.
You know, that's the first time I played like professionally.
I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it?
And there's two Scottish guys, and I said, "Oh, you're here for the movie."
That rugby is a game for all shapes and sizes, all cultural aspects.
He looked at me and he says, "You guys are awesome."
Grow rugby, 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 grow rugby.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime and this is the show where we speak to people about the opportunities that they have found, created, or taken advantage of via rugby. You know, right now it's a new season that's about to come. We're almost about a month away from a new rugby season. And guys, I want you guys to be able to enter into this season with the right amount of fire. Go get your highlight and hype videos. I got you guys taken care of. You guys can go over to gifttimeproductions.com/highlights. Y'all want to be able to get great piece of art to be able to represent for your team, represent for yourself. Let people know what is going on with you and be able to know that you have the power. I should do that more. The power! Yo, you just want to be able to make sure that people know what's going on with you and you can be able to do what you need to do, but more importantly that you can show off exactly what you have. So definitely come check us out, gifttimeproductions.com/highlights. And one other thing, Rugby Outlet Mall, we are right off the bat, we got our shirts, new gear coming through. Definitely check out some of our other stuff that's been going on. You wanted to get a look at it, shape up for the new season. You know, bring that fire for the new season. And, you know, every month we're going to be trying to bring in a new designer so to be able to give you something to rock about. So with that being said, I'm very excited for our guest for today. Coming straight out of Howard, she's been a co-founder. She's getting more and more well-known, and honestly, just absolutely dope person. Like, this is someone to watch for in multiple fields. Almost, yeah, it wouldn't matter where she's in. I think she'd be great in it. Takunda Rusike, captain for Howard Women's Rugby, founder of Howard Women's Rugby, and just one of the people that are leading the way in a lot of things when it comes to the HBCU rugby space. Just a great conversation, to be honest with you, and just to learn so much more and get just the energy of what it is to be in this realm. Guys, I'm not even going to hold you off for too much longer. Definitely want you to check this out. So, without further ado, introduce you to Takunda Rusike. Check it out.
Grow rugby, 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 grow rugby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. I got a big time V, super I, and of course, the P of P. I never get that last part, the P of P, the person to person. Anyway, we got the VIP coming straight from the DMV, holding it up for HERD. No, okay, we got to Howard University Rugby Women captain, co-founder, Takunda Rusike. Man, I think I got it wrong. But hey, Takunda, thank you so much, especially with all my screw ups on that. And even though we said this multiple times because I suck at name, but Takunda, one of the, I'm not gonna lie, one of the people that I've been wanting to talk to, and I'll say it to you, I've been wanting to talk to you for months. Months has been wanting to do this. So to finally get this done, Takunda, thank you so much for coming through.
Of course.
You know, I have to say, you know, whenever you guys first started the Howard Rugby Women's program, what was this? Technically, you guys talked about it end of 2020 was whenever first, but really its revelation came in 2021.
Yep.
But you guys have been, I think, exceptionally unique and really great with how you guys have presented it, presented yourselves to the world. Not very many rugby programs, and I can say very, very few, are really capable of creating a hype around, especially into launch. And I give a lot of credit because a lot of people give you the credit. So, you know, I'm getting it to the source. So, you know, credit where credit is due.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it took a lot of people. I mean, this was a huge group effort for sure. I mean, it was months and months of work, talking, meetings, drafting, emailing, months and months and months.
Yo, I love it. And you know, it's a journey. We're gonna get into it because you know I love to I want to get into deep dive of how this and of course with you.
Yeah.
But like of course, you know, it is a group effort and obviously multiple people, but I've always said if you don't have a lightning rod to be able to attract that energy, it makes it incredibly difficult to be able to do anything else. So you know, way to be the lightning rod and proving the power of the point. Yo, we needed one great person, and then everybody else comes along for the ride as well too.
Thank you. It's been a ride for sure. It's only getting started. I mean, I'm only going to my junior year of college, so we have 2 more years, and I want to finish with a bang.
Let's go. Let's go. So, you know, I always like to say, every superhero origin, every superhero has their origin story. And Takunda, I want to know, what is your origin story? So I ask you, how did you get started with rugby?
This question has so many layers. I'm going to start off with, I was an athlete growing up. I was a swimmer, a competitive swimmer. From very young ages all the way up until like early high school. Basketball, I was really into basketball. And I think over the years, just like having different experiences in different sports, I very quickly learned like what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. And I quickly learned one of my strengths was being strong. My sophomore year of high school, I decided off of a whim, after just basketball is a hard sport.
Right.
I was really into basketball for the longest time after swimming. I always kept swimming. I was a lifeguard throughout high school. I was lifeguard. I did like Red Cross and all that stuff. So even when I stopped swimming competitively, swimming was still a big part of my life.
It's in your blood. It basically became part of your blood at that point.
Yeah. And even now, like I teach some lessons like here and there, like now. Like it's always been something that I've done. But when I stopped swimming competitively, I really got into basketball in high school. And growing up in the DMV, DMV basketball, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. The culture is tough. And I'm very competitive. I thrived in that competition, but it's really tough. So my sophomore year, I decided to kind of not really take a break from basketball, but kind of just try something new. And I tried throwing for track. And I made varsity my first try. And I went all the way to states, and it was the best experience, like probably the best athletic experience I've ever had. And that's when I really realized that I was strong. And that was something I wanted to hone in on. And I was like, okay, like I've been told my whole life, like you would be so good at rugby. Like I'd always heard it in the back. I'd always watched rugby with like my uncles and stuff. So I was very familiar with the sport, just being first gen. But after that experience with track, that's when I was like, okay, like I really am going to give this a shot. And I gave it a shot the following year, my junior year, and the rest is history.
So for you, kind of like, What was it so much that was the connection that made shot put to rugby versus basketball to rugby?
So, first off, I was horrible at shot put. Let's start there.
I'm sorry, javelin.
Discus.
Oh, okay.
I'm packing up my apartment right now, and I actually had my disc. I actually have discs lying around the house because it's a great weapon. Like if like somebody were trying to intrude me, like
facts.
It's a great weapon. So I actually have a couple around the house. I wish like I had one in like arm's reach, but yeah, I was just.
I like see this is true DMV value. You know, there's throwing stars, there's throwing knives. No. We're gonna weaponize these track competition elements. Discus you into, and you know what? Those discus are actually thin enough and hard enough to do some like legitimate damage.
Oh, a girl in high school on practice. I'll never forget this, and I'm not gonna say her name. The discus, she was right outside the disc cage. Remember, it's a whole cage, like for javelin, discus, hammer on, all of that. And my high school, they refused to. That's a story for another time. But long and short of it, she got smacked. Like like one of the boys went to throw, and she was just a little too far out from the cage. She got smacked. An ambulance had a rush on the track. She had stitches popping out. We were taking our shirts and sweatshirts off to control the blood. And it was that day when I said, not only is this an amazing sport, this is a weapon.
This is self-defense.
This is self-defense. And I personally don't believe in guns. I'm not really into them. So yeah, I have discus around my house.
I mean, look, you don't need guns whenever you have a projectile, a literal projectile that you train to use. No, I feel that. You know, some people go archery. You know, some people are like, hey, I want to slingshot. You said, hey, I'm gonna use this discus, and you know what? I both respect and admire that. Yeah, I like the double usage of this because people don't always find a way with track. You know, it's just like, hey, I can run, I can throw these balls, I can throw the javelin, but they don't actually say, hey, what's the real world value? I can do this.
For sure. So yeah, so long and the short of it, that experience being a thrower my sophomore year and going so far in such a short amount of time, mind you, I got injured and I tore my I had a lesion in my MCL in the middle of the season, and I still made it to states. And that experience of just like making varsity that young, like going all the doing, I was the first girl to make it to states for my high school, like ever. Nice. So like that whole experience, like I feel like it just like changed my athletic trajectory, where I was like, okay, like I am strong. This is a strength that I had, and I'm gonna harper in on it.
So it was almost like so basically it was just like, because I can do, because everything else, the swimming, the basketball, was that just felt more natural in his time that you had put in.
I swimming, basketball, I did tennis. I'm an African mother. So I played every single sport. I played the violin. I was on honor roll. So you know how this goes.
Training for the full eclectic. I want my daughter to be able to take care of herself in all facets.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, so but specifically this experience, that's why I was like, okay, I'm strong, and not only am I strong, I like this. I like this feeling, and I want a sport where this is celebrated. And the following year, I found a local. Rugby was very few and far between. It's not really in a lot of the high schools, but there's a lot of clubs. So I started practicing with local clubs while still playing like my high school sports, and just practicing, getting into it, practicing, going to practice, that type of thing. And then that following year, not that following year, I mean like following spring, I started playing, and like that was it. Like that was it. And then,
who was the first club that you ended up starting to play for?
So I started practicing with Chesapeake Women's. I didn't play with them because obviously it was a women's club, so I wasn't able to play with them because I was still in high school. But I would practice with them, and I think that gave me a really good just like base, just because like I honestly was like just watching them, and like they were like women, like you know what I mean.
They're a talented rugby team as well too. Constantly in competition.
Yeah, so just watching them and practicing with them, like that was always so cool. And then I'm a visual learner, so Cup of Nations, I love that's when I started watching MLR. Premier 15s had kind of started on Flow Rugby around that time.
Right.
So I started watching some of that. And then the first official team I started playing for competitively was the Marauders. And then and that was like, Marauders was about an hour away from my place, but luckily I started driving, so it was fine. And gas was still like $2 then. So
it was the good old days. The good old days.
Gas was still like $2 then. So whatever.
Oh, that's facts. So so there was something interesting that you kind of pinpointed, because obviously you're Zimbabwean, so rugby is already innate within the culture of Zimbabwe. I had a chance to talk to this guy Kasech Shengenji. Who
I actually he's as somebody that I'm familiar with. My dad went to school with him.
The small world of the African population, especially whenever you go to the citizen to citizen. The
African rugby community, especially in the U.S. Yeah.
That is a discussion. That is a discussion, not for another time, for later on, because it does speak to the volume of that connection.
Mm-hmm.
But so you have this talking to him, he told me about how deep it is within Zimbabwe. And so for you, like, obviously, you were a swimmer initially, but you said like your uncles and stuff always talked about it.
Yeah.
What was the experience like at your house? Was it something that you guys had like on TV, or is it something that you guys followed?
So whenever it was on TV, like my mom would put it on. Whenever it was on TV, like I grew up like I knew when Cup of Nations would be on, like when I grew up with it on the TV, especially the international tournaments. I just grew up whenever it was on, whenever rugby was on and like broadcasted, like it would be on the TV.
Did your parents play, or did they have
my dad played. My dad played. He wasn't very good. He always says that. He always says that I'm way better than he ever was. But
hey, you know what they always say? Like, the great ones come out from the ones that they played, but they were sides. So then when their kids play, that's whenever they're best.
But my uncles were actually good. My dad wasn't good, but my uncles were good. And hearing just like their experiences. Now they have really crazy stories that I've heard growing up, and that's definitely why I actually always wanted to play rugby, like especially when I like got older. But my mom kind of postponed it for as long as she could, because she grew up watching like crazy things. She grew up going to games. She saw my uncle like dislocate his collarbone and like crazy stuff like that. So my mom actually really postponed. I would say postponed, but she really pushed me to like gain athletic experience elsewhere before I started playing rugby, because I think she knew that once I started playing rugby, it was probably
locked in.
I think she probably knew in the back of her head. So yeah, and I'm glad she did though, because I think playing all those sports gave me such a good base and experience. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, I think that's one of the arguments that get made, and I sometimes have this issue whenever people are like, you need to be able to play elite level. You need to start playing whenever you basically start specializing, almost whenever you first come out the womb and start playing.
Yeah,
but I think there's such a value, and we see it in literally every other sport, that you need to have the mixed elements of all these different knowledges in sports, especially when you're young. Specialize as you get older, cool. But
personally, I chose to go to Howard, but I had offers for track and I had offers for rugby. You can do both. Like that's not weird. Like I know multiple girls who had similar, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I don't think you can. I don't understand this notion that you can only be successful in one track.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't agree at all.
I think it's very limited, because again, also it takes into the account that you don't have fluidity there, and I think especially as you get better and you build your reaction time, that knowledge and fluidity that you can utilize from one sport to the next transfers very well, and you're like, okay, I know how to push myself because of what I did over here, and then I can adapt it here and gives maybe a different showing that gives me an advantage over my opponent and helps my team.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I've like, not even just in sports, but just in general, I never understood. I always felt like it was always like you're athletic or you're academic. I'm both.
Right.
Like as much as I love the field, I love doing research. I love doing things like that as well. I don't believe you can be successful in however many tracks as you want to be successful in.
Agreed. I think, you know what's the funny thing? I think that academic athletic merging really kicked off heavily, maybe in the last 10, 15 years. Now, mind you, there's always people who could do both, but you would normally find, especially when it comes to the medical research side, to the researcher side, that typically if they were doing athletics, it was running, it was cross country, it was marathon, it was stuff that was not arduous on the body, right?
Yeah.
But I think in recent years, it has been, not that it was discovered, but it's been more accepted, and people are more outspoken about being able to say, hey, I can play what would be considered a contact sport or a tougher sport or a more traditionally popular sport, and also be highly academic, and it becomes more expected to be so. So whether it's football players and you have that, I think I go with like the Seattle Seahawks and Richard Sherman, who's a Stanford graduate, who also was an elite player. Like the two work together, and in fact, can be a benefit.
100%. 100%. So speaking to that point, I'm a nursing major, so I just got into the Howard Upper Division program. So
congratulations.
Thank you. I did not think it was. This STEM life is a hard life, but
work has been put in, but it has been fulfilled. It is being fulfilled.
This STEM life is a hard life, but I'm excited to like start clinical, and like I just got my schedule, I finished my registration, so super excited for that.
Yo, I love that. So for you, kind of whenever you're doing in high school and you're kind of building that base, is this something that you always felt innate when it comes to like the research, the wanting to learn, maybe not even learn, but to gather?
I always knew I was going to work in the medical field. I always knew. My sophomore year, going to my junior year of high school, I participated. I'm in National Youth Leadership Forum. They had like medicine program. I don't know. It's called like Envision. I don't know if it still exists. I feel like people still go. I feel like it's still pretty common for a lot of people to go. They have different programs in a lot of different fields, like law, medicine, whatever. And like a couple kids from like every high school, I feel like across the country, like get invited to go. So I went to their medicine program going into my junior year of high school at St. John's University in Queens. And I spent like a couple weeks there in the summer in the dorms, and like went to class and went to clinical, went to the hospital, all that stuff. And I absolutely loved it. And that just like honestly just like confirmed for me. So when I applied to college, I applied to nursing programs, and so I always knew. And even when things have gotten tough, like because with the prereqs and everything, because Howard is a get in nursing program. So some nursing programs you automatically get in when you apply to the school.
Mm-hmm.
But Howard is a program where you have to like apply, like you apply into the program after 2 years. And like that was pretty stressful for me. And honestly, that was kind of my hesitation with picking Howard. That was really my only hesitation, that academic piece, because it was like, oh, you don't know what's going to happen. And there was, and honestly, they did admit a lot of kids and stuff, but I just plugged through. I had an internship. Last summer I did research at Yale, and I honestly think that's what gave me the like kind of like I guess ahead. Because there was a lot. Our application pool was a lot of kids. So
I was gonna say, because especially because it's a late selection. So much more is the proof that you have to do in those first 2 years, and it puts so much weight on being like, I cannot screw up versus if you're able to enter into it's a tightness.
It's that tightness plus, and at the same time I was trying to get like rugby off of the ground. Like I mean, I've learned so much. Like definitely I don't put as much pressure on myself now as I used to, but I mean, it has not been easy.
I mean, look, the best things never are easy, but you are able to learn so much from the process. The results are the results, but the process is what changes everything and how it actually transitions over into that next phase. So for you, let me ask this, because you kind of spoke on this. What was you spoke about having the opportunity to be able to do stuff with track, with rugby, and academically. What led to your decision to want to actually choose Howard? And I know you're a DMV person, so there's right there, but you guys have a lot of options in that little 4-hour rotation.
Honestly, most of my options, I had I had a few DMV options, but a lot of my options were not actually in the DMV.
Yeah.
But I mean, COVID. There's a COVID.
That'll help segment things a little bit, filter things down a bit.
COVID, and then also just like COVID. I think COVID shook up everyone's world.
Right.
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest. I have two little sisters.
Nice.
My mom's side, who I grew up with, who I'm very, very close to, and I have a little brother on my dad's side, and like I'm the oldest. So with COVID, there were some family things where I felt like I might want to stay a little closer than I originally thought, because originally when I was with college, Loyola Chicago, I was really considering them with track and academics. That was there was a couple schools I was really considering, like all over the place with track and rugby.
Right.
But again, I just like really felt compelled to kind of stay closer to home. I don't think I'm going to do the same thing for grad school.
Right.
But
spread the wings a little bit, but the foundation was
set.
But
I definitely felt like so I wanted to stay a little closer to home, which kind of like narrowed down my list a lot. And then once my list got narrowed down a lot, when I was like, I want to stay closer to home, it happened to be like in that same week that Breonna Taylor happened. And I think the combination of both, and then I was looking at my list kind of like in like that kind of like closer to home radius, but still not like super close, because I grew up in Baltimore, and like that's where my family is.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so I grew up in Baltimore, but I went to Baltimore Towson area.
I know it well.
Yeah, so like that's where my family is. So I wanted to go like not super close, but not super far either. Right. So when I was looking at that list, and then like kind of just like looking at like the different like options and like scholarships and stuff, I was like, Howard did give me a pretty like good like academic scholarship package. So then I was like, okay, like just like looking at my options and stuff. Ultimately, I was like, all right, like I think I'm gonna go, at least I think I was like I'm gonna go to Howard. Like I'm gonna go. I want to be a part of the history.
Right.
I knew they didn't have a rugby team, and at first it was something I didn't. At first, my idea was like I'm just gonna play club in the area, because there's a lot of women's club teams in the area.
Of course.
So at first, that's what I was thinking. Then when COVID happened, I was just like sitting in the house, like kind of bored with COVID, and I wasn't really working because COVID. My parents didn't really want me to work. So I was kind of like bored in the house. I was like, like I really can. And I was like still running and like active and like working out and stuff. But I was kind of just like, and I was in contact with some of the local women's teams. But just like as the more I thought about it, I was kind of just like, I don't know, like why? I mean, if I'm sitting here at home, like I have all these group meetings, like why not? It kind of, you know what I mean? Like, why not? Maybe just like see if there's an interest. And then it was around that same time I saw like Daniel like on Twitter posting about like wanting to get men together. And then I messaged Daniel on Twitter, and then the rest was history.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was kind of combining the two. And it's interesting. You kind of speak on something that really, really catches my attention. And it was during that time of COVID. So obviously we all had our reaction, and it impacted us all in different ways.
Yeah.
But I think we speak a lot, and forgive me for utilizing the term, but I got to separate some generationalness. But when it comes to your Gen Z population generation, oh God, I feel so old saying this, but I feel so Gen Z. Like, I'm curious as to, especially as being black women and DMV, and you're living in Baltimore. This is a very black area, but how did you personally feel between the Breonna Taylor situation, and then obviously the George Floyd situation, and then everything?
I mean, I grew up 5 minutes down the block from Freddie Gray.
Yeah.
So I mean, honestly, I felt like what every other young black kid felt like. Like, I mean, what are we supposed to do? Like, should we feel safe going outside? Like, can we just be like? I think all young black teenagers just really just thought to ourselves, like, can we just be? I mean, Breonna Taylor was an EMT, young, black, career-driven female, just sleeping in her house.
Right.
I mean,
thank God they finally arrested those guys.
Like,
FBI.
Yeah.
Only took it 3 years. Yeah, no big.
But I'm just saying though, she was just, and like, I mean, that's most of us. I mean, most of us are just black females. Like, she was an EMT, working as an EMT, starting up in nursing school. That's most of us. Like just like starting up, just in school, like just living. And I think for me, I was like, I do not. And then that was around the same time where I don't know if you heard about the Yale story where that Black student was taking a nap. A Black female student was taking a nap, and somebody called the police on her.
Yes,
she fell asleep. She just fell asleep studying.
When she was inside the study room, in the public study room, and they were like, "You go to the school?" And he's like, "Yeah, I have a tag." Like, or she had her tag, but they still didn't believe her.
Right, exactly. And for me, like, I was considering some schools in upper north. Because a lot of the upper northern schools have rugby. And I obviously, I think, I don't think all the schools are like this, but being a younger, teenager, making this decision about where I'm going to go, and this is what I'm seeing on the news like every other day. And Howard did happen to give me a really good academic package. I was like, yeah, I want to take my talent somewhere where I'm going to be appreciated, and I don't need to be afraid to fall asleep while studying in my library. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, the reason even I ask, I agree, is because I know for me, a lot of this started to, it starts to hit a repetition, obviously. So for me, I think that the biggest highlight that impacted for me was whenever, what's his name? It's with the kid in Florida.
Kamala in the back.
Yeah, right.
Kamala calendar.
The support,
of course.
was whenever the kid in Florida passed in 2010. So it kind of started the escalation of the internet revelation of improper deaths of Black citizens. Right. And that one was just slightly different because the guy who oh my goodness, with the hood. Why am I forgetting names? See, this has just been so many.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. So
that's why I was like,
from
that
point, together.
From that point, it was just like, okay, we got hit by that. And it spread because of the internet, solely because of the internet. And there was the early stages of social media. And so it started to become a repetition for the next few years.
Another thing for me specifically was I was considering going to a military academy. And
really?
Yes, because the military
did you do ROTC or?
Well, the military academies have really good rugby. Norwich has a really good women's rugby. That's specifically the program that I was in close conversation with and considering. And they have really good rugby. And I love rugby. I love rugby and I love structure. I love rugby. I love structure. I don't say I love structure, but I thrive under structure.
You like the frame, give you the framework, but don't hold me tight
into
it.
Right. So
and Trayvon Martin was the name I was trying to think of. Sorry.
Yes. I thrive under structure.
Yeah.
So I was very much considering some of the military schools, but I think just seeing like with some of the things with like Trump and stuff, and just realizing I was like, am I really going to go to military school and do like for a country that would let this happen to people? Like let this happen to people that look like me? And the answer was no. So yeah.
And that does interest. And the only other reason is because everything you come as they say a more digital native. You grew up into this, so how you access and deal with information online differs a little bit from how I guess I'm older millennial because of the fact that we have this like middle ground is went from the newspaper and then you see the headlines and then you learn how to use the internet and then you understood how social media discourse did, because I basically grew my discourse through so many fights, so many arguments via MySpace to Facebook and then to Twitter and etc.
Yeah.
So for you, whenever it comes to seeing this information, your worldview prior to, let's say, Breonna Taylor and everything that happened with Yale, what do you feel your worldview was, and then how it might have changed afterwards?
So I'm gonna be really honest. I think I always was very aware of these things because growing up, the Baltimore police. Like I knew I had friends. I didn't have an older brother, but I had friends who had older brothers. I had friends who were 6'4", 6'5", who had situations where they were maced at like 15, etc., etc. So I don't think personally, I don't think I ever had that like ignorance or that naive that it was an equal,
the world
it's equal. Yeah, I don't think I ever had. I just don't think I ever really had that.
Yeah. You know, I for me, whenever, especially because of having Nigerian parents, so you know, whenever
That as well. I mean, yeah, my mom's an immigrant. I mean,
right.
Yeah, my mom is an immigrant. I've watched her. I mean, my mom has been very fortunate. She has built an amazing career. Shout out to my mother. Shout out to my mother. She's about to get
shout out
to my mama. She's about to graduate with her doctorate actually in less than 3 months. Yes.
Congratulations.
No, my mom honestly, like, she has taught me like hard work, perseverance, the importance of education. My mother. So yeah, but needless to say, she had me when she was 18, 19. She was an immigrant.
Right.
She was trying to get herself back into school, back into college. Of course, I watched my mother fight through that. So I don't think I ever had an ignorance that, you know, the world was fair and there was an equal playing field.
Do you think the way that she balanced, and to the point that I was going to say, one of the things that I feel has always been able to protect me from the weight of all that is, for me, my parents always kind of presented us as like, you know, you're from Nigeria, you're of Nigeria, you're from the US, but you're not of the US, if that makes sense. So understand that you have this connection, this direct connection to a homeland that you have significance with. And so don't let the aspects of what happens here create your identity for you. For you, did your parents set that boundary for you as well, or was it something that you learned? Or
I mean, honestly, I think like I grew up very much like in both. Honestly, like again, like I grew up in very much like both cultures. For example, I feel like I grew up in both cultures that very much I didn't let it define me, but at the same time, like I'm a citizen here. Like we live here, or my whole family is here. Our lives are here. Like my mom's like this is our lot. Like this is our my mom is a citizen. Like this is our like this is where we live. This is our lot. This is our home. So you know what I mean? Like on one hand, yes, but on the other hand, I don't think I'm not exempt by anything that happens on the news.
Of course,
yeah.
But I guess it's more of just like being able to push through the emotional way, because you know sometimes like where it's just like it gets to be too much.
Oh yeah, I mean obviously,
all you have.
But I think you know what? That's why I'm at Howard, because when it gets to be too much, like and even when I do like move on from Howard, I'm gonna have that alumni network. I'm gonna have these connections that I made. Like that to me. That's why I wanted to come to. That is why I wanted to come to Howard, because I will forever have some. I will forever be able to look and have that community.
Word. And I think that's one of the realest things, especially whenever you go choose a university, that especially within the HBCU system. I think that network is probably one of the most lauded components that go. Like, an HBCU attendee and another one, even if you're rivals within that system, in totality, there's a family aspect that goes along. So that's dope.
And I also feel as if I'm only going to get that more. As hopefully monkeypox does not ruin our semester. And just also like we have so many like HU26. There's so many girls coming in. I'm so excited to like get that. I'm so excited to like be an upperclassman, like, and be able to like do the tours and stuff and like help them through that. Be that big strong campus for them. I'm so excited for the experiences ahead.
No, I love that. So I want to kind of follow into what you guys were doing with rugby and that entrance into Howard, because it also sounds like you're very involved within the student life component of Howard University.
Yeah, I mean, so I think honestly the way it kind of works, because we are at the club level, we're still very much under the student life or like office. So so I am very much very like involved with that, because obviously being president, all leadership, like top leaderships, have to like be a part of student life to kind of like make sure that your organization is abiding by the principles of the student life office. But so far it's been a really cool experience to be a part of that and work with the office. About like a couple of days, I'm gonna go to student leadership retreat, and I think that will be a great experience to meet like other leaders within organizations. I hope to make more connections. I hope to recruit. That's
what I was gonna say. I was like, look, did you enter into student life work first and then the rugby came after, or was it like because you were rugby it went to student life?
Yeah, so rugby and then student life. I was always all about. It all started with rugby. It all started. My ball's over there. It all started with rugby, but yeah.
Oh, I love that, and I love it because again, it speaks a little bit to what you need to do to formulate a proper foundation. Because having that access point gives you access to the new ideas that the school is trying to push to the students as well. So for you though, I want to, because everybody talks about we know the good, and but what were some of these challenges that you guys had whenever you guys put it in? Because I've heard a number of things, but I want to speak directly. What were some of the challenges that you guys had with it? Because I know I've had my challenges with like Southern University as well.
Yeah, honestly, just admin. I mean, so I honestly think COVID really played a big part because the university was really trying to adjust to that, and adjust their policies and how new organizations were going to come about within COVID.
Right.
So I think
reduce the amount of contact that there's going to be physically having.
Yeah. So I think that's really what played a huge part, just because the university was changing so much to adjust to COVID that it was like they were fighting with themselves to figure it out, and we were fighting with them to figure, like, you know what I mean? It was just like it was just a hot mess. But I think now, because they've kind of settled with COVID, I would say now working with the university, it's not as treacherous as it was.
Yeah. Do you feel like the connection has been shaped a little bit more, has been strengthened a little bit more?
Oh
now?
Yeah. So I also think Howard is very much, you have to earn everything. So I think we needed to do a few things. I think we needed to kind of like earn that, notoriety before they were going to want to work with us. And I think now that we've, kind of like we've earned our place in the room. Now it's, I wouldn't say we have nearly as many issues as we used to working with them.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. And a lot of it always is like, how do I build a connection with the people? Because it's always the person first, and then it's the label of the university.
Right.
And you're always having to make sure it's like, okay, I'm good with you, individual. Then once it's there, it kind of opens up from there and slowly build more and more. So as you guys have gotten stronger within that, how have you guys felt like, let me rechange that. Like, how has the process of getting the information out to the about Howard Rugby been? Because, you guys have been able to get a unique amount of media attention along with it. So can you speak on how that's been processing?
So I personally, I'm very good speaking to people, conversational wise. Like this is what I love. Like
I love it.
As much as I love the game, but I love talking to people about the game more. Like I love bringing people to the game. Like I love bringing, especially outreach. Like I want to bring people to the game. So I think just like talking and just like being good at that, like I think naturally, like once we were able to like get one media thing, it was kind of like, oh, like, and especially because we are like a good team, a team who is really good at bringing people and like getting people to like want to be a part. I think it just the ball just kind of rolled from there. Is what I would say. But it's just like talking to people, as you said. It's all conversations.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But I mean, even still, like being able to get the CBS feature, getting the Washington Post feature, like a lot of people talk, but a lot of people don't talk and actually get the features at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I like what I do. I'm
Brag on it, woman. Let it fly. We don't need humility here.
I mean, that is true. That is true. I think one, there's a unique story here. I think two, women's rugby really is coming up in the U.S. right now. Women's rugby is really coming up, and Black women in rugby. I mean, Naya Shea. I mean, hello. I mean, there's so many, like, it's really coming up. So I think, and then Iona Mar, what the women did with the Olympics. With the Olympics and like the TikTok and all those things, like they really, I honestly think I should be thanking them. They got I really think there's a new engagement with women's rugby that has been found recently. And I think I just capitalized on that with my unique story.
Yeah, and that makes sense because I mean, look, I don't think there was any secret in. No, I guess many people didn't really say, but for me, I've always had a belief. I was like, look, rugby has the advantage because of the fact that rugby has a women's side that has equal exact ruling. Everything is equal. There's no adjustments to make it favorable or not
lacrosse,
favorable.
But most other sports do. I played lacrosse. Our sticks were shorter. We didn't have the nets. We no helmets, so we couldn't hit on the top. Same thing with
basketball,
softball instead of baseball.
Exactly.
I mean, there is a unique niche here, and I think people have loved that. And I think it's really, I think that's what's really gotten this engagement in people in women's rugby.
Word. Yeah, and it hits the top, and then you spoke on, like with Ileana Mar being able to find that blow up situation after the Olympics on just being able to be personality, which is ironically one of the things that rugby for some reason seems to keep trying to squeeze in, not for Ileana, but I mean in general, is like, no, nobody rises above or nobody stands out to be the lightning rod to be able to attract attention. But it's like,
but the women are not playing that. The women, I think the women's game, we're not like we want to push and push and push. And not only do we want to push and push and push, we believe the women's game, like we want to be professional. We want that's what we want. So yeah, we're gonna continue to push for these opportunities, and I'm not gonna stop. No way.
It's a different level of hunger. It's that hunger again. Whenever everything has always worked against you, it's easier to be able to be like, oh look, I'm gonna leave it all on the table. I'm not going to hold back. Why? What's the point of holding back? Let's bring it all out and do. And I think again, it's taking it to the different level, and it's forced people to actually recognize that they need to do these things to attract more attention.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you have to put in work. I mean, you have to, like, everything is work. I mean, everything is work. I don't think there's not a single thing anybody gets without work, and that's just the end of it. Like, just, like a lot of emails, as I said, like. Just work. Like, if there's a vision, and like one thing about me, I'm very good at visualizing and then like putting a list. I visualize like what do I want, what do I want, and listing, and then how am I going to get there? And today I'm going to start what A through Z to what I need to do to get there. Failure is not an option ever.
Yo, I love it, and that's fact. Again, it goes back to that's that hunger. Like, you need to have that drive, especially because you actually genuinely love it. And this is where I go, like, the part where I want rugby community people to not try and mix in, like, oh, if there's something more that you want from the sport, does not inherently mean that you're taking away your passion and replacing it. It's like, no, the passion drives things up.
It's all intertwined. It's all intertwined to push the sport up. Everything is to push the sport up, to get that engagement up. I mean, it's all to help this. I mean, it all is intertwined.
Right. You know, as you've been doing this rugby stuff and going from working with the media and recruiting the people, working with the university, you know, we all have a perception of what, again, these from a larger scale, media, administration, everything feels very sometimes out of reach. Now that you started to get in tune with it, how have you started to feel like when you look at maybe another example from maybe other sports or other people, you hear different news about how people react to it, or even if you hear people be like, oh man, the administration is blanket statement, or this media is blanket statement. Has your perception of those things changed because now you have a little bit more into understanding of the interworking or more experience engaging in that? Or do you still kind of feel like, all right, what I'm having is a unique experience, and that's still
I think I do talk to what I learn. I'm somebody I always want to learn from other people and other female athletes. So like recently I went to PR7s and I talked to some of the girls there and like their experiences with, you know, media, etc. And I don't think anything that I've experienced has really been different, honestly, especially within the women's rugby space.
Right.
I wouldn't say I've experienced anything different than, I would say, the norm. I would just say on a college, I would say though it is unique though that the fact that we're a college club team, because usually for media coverage for college rugby, it's usually the NCAA programs who get like this amount of coverage. So I would say that would be something that I would say has been something that I've like noticed. But other than that, I would say like in terms of like how it's worked and gone about it, but also a lot of the upper club women's rugby teams, other college teams, for example, like Penn State, those teams, I mean, they get coverage all the time. So I think the difference is that we're just such a brand new team, and I think that was the difference. I think the difference is that we were the new kids of the block, and it just like, you know what I mean? And usually you're a team for like a couple years, maybe you win, you know, you win a couple tournaments. Maybe you have a good nationals run, that type of thing, and that's when you get the coverage. Is usually how that would go. And I think that was maybe the difference, that we were completely brand new. We got coverage before we were even competitive. That season that we did, the Washington Post article was our probation season before officially even getting into the CRA.
Yeah.
So, and that is pretty unheard of. So I would say that's really the only difference, but I wouldn't say in terms of like how we've gotten coverage and the experience has been different.
Yeah. Wait, are you guys planning to play D2, D1, 2A, or
so
D2, D1, 2A? Where are you guys playing at?
So we're CRA D2, the women's team, and that's honestly where we're comfortable at right now.
It's a growing program. Like
it's a growing program. Yeah.
I remember when Lindenwood first entered into the scene, and they started off with D2A, and it was within 5 years before they made it. By the time they made it to D1A, because again, you set your base, set your foundation, be able to create confidence and allow people to play. That's where the word of mouth kicks in, and then you start recruiting out from there.
Exactly. And I also think there's a development opportunity within this, because there's so many other teams who are kind of going what we're going. They're not new teams in a sense, but they're kind of starting over because of COVID and those numbers. So I think we have a unique opportunity within this league, because like we kind of get to like learn from these other teams who have done it before, and we kind of get to learn from them as well as play with them, and it's been a good experience so far.
Yeah. No, the reason I was asking about previously about the perception as well is because it was something that I experienced whenever I started doing more and more media stuff.
Okay.
And if you look at the way people talk about, like, let's say USA Rugby, it's a blank space, USA Rugby. And it's like, oh, they're doing this and this, until you start to actually interact with the people, because now you have that entrance. And so it was like, oh, no, these guys are doing the best they can. These guys are doing what they can. These guys are doing what they can.
Right.
And so there's an empathy that goes along with it, even in the same way as creating events and stuff like that. Like now when I'm looking at events, the empathy level of what it takes to get to that spot.
Yeah, I mean,
really changes.
Of course, because, so I understand your question a little bit better. Absolutely has my perspective changed. For example, when I see Serena on the TV, et cetera, like, of course, because, I have a different perspective of like, what it takes, et cetera, and the hard work that goes into it. But, I would say that would have been.
It becomes more accessible at the same time, though, because it's like, okay, I see this isn't super magic. It's just
exactly.
I gotta.
And it's also now I see myself in, like, for example, like I had a really bad imposter syndrome when I first started some of the things where I was like, do I deserve to be here? Like, I just didn't really believe it that I deserved to be there. I think over time, like now I like you can like now obviously I've grown into myself, whatever. But I think for a while I definitely did have that bit of imposter syndrome. But I think just learning from other female athletes. I watched the Serena. I love Serena. Documentary on HBO, and that was like honestly like really inspiring to me, because I mean Serena was able to bounce back after what happened like with her birth and everything, and just like that bounce back mentality that like we are capable of all things. So I think definitely for sure.
No, I love that. So kind of closing out a little bit, I want to ask you guys are about to enter into a new season. This will be, let's say, arguably your first really full season, full team or not.
I would say last year, because we had our inaugural season fall, and then we played spring. So I would say this is like
so second season,
second year, but third season. I would say
fair.
About.
So you guys are a little bit more settled into it this year. There's no COVID that's playing as a secret. Monkeypox wants to come play disruptive.
I actually was just talking. We were just talking our executive board in a group chat about that, and we're just like, we don't know. I think I don't look.
Right now, obviously you guys we're doing the HBCU rugby classic. My mind is literally going. I'm like, come on, like. Is this what we're gonna do every fall? We're just gonna scare people out from traveling right before the spring comes, and then like, so I'm like, no.
I would say here's the thing. I don't luckily, they've already started pre-registration for vaccines in DC. So all of us have been able to pre-register for the monkeypox vaccine.
Cheers.
And I don't know what else. I don't know. Honestly, like the first couple days, I'm somebody, I watched the news. The first couple days, I said I can't watch the news. I was in complete denial. I said I cannot watch the news. If this is the apocalypse, I can't do this. I cannot do these these horrible diseases every couple years. Like what are we doing? Like I can't.
It's like, look, there is a time when ignorant bliss is required. It's not always good. You know, it's not always necessary in the totality, but there are moments where it's like, I just need a break.
And I personally had a horrible COVID experience. Horrible.
Oh, so this hits deep in the heart. This hits deep.
Like, oh no. Like this is actually this is my worst nightmare for real. And maybe I have asthma and a heart murmur, so my immune system is kind of bad, which is why I think sometimes I get a little. I think that's why my COVID was so bad. But yeah, no, this is my word. Like, no, just no.
At least COVID was inside. I mean, it coughed, it's hurt, it's breathing, but it's inside. This one is like, yo.
I would literally I want to get a hazmat.
You do remember you're still trying to be a nurse, right? Like,
I know.
This is your life.
I was literally talking about this with my roommate who's also a nursing major, because like I finally figured out my housing situation. By golly me. No, yeah, a mess. We're starting off junior year on ridiculousness. Like, so I was actually talking to my roommate about this, and I was like, so what are they gonna do? Like, are we just gonna be like the free monkeypox, like beggars? Like, is that what's about to happen?
Yo, hey, look, guys. Hey, we're ready to replace them in. Hey, just put that first line of defense over there. All right, you guys good? You passed the NCLEX? All right, you're
like, it's just, oh no, just no.
The struggle.
I am excited for the HBCU Classic, and I am, you know what? I'm really crossing my fingers that by the time that comes around, this is contained.
It's gonna be
settled.
gone. Like we're
settled. At least settled. At least we're all vaccinated, and it's settled. It's settled.
Yes,
kind of settled.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was gonna ask, how do you feel about the team? You know, where the women are at their place. You know, obviously mentally. Obviously, you guys are just coming back in the next few weeks. But like, as it's felt leaving out until going into this.
I think we needed this break. I needed this break. I think this inaugural year of programming was for me, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I really needed the summer to relax. I still have another I still have one more trip right before school, literally like 2 days before class starts. Because like I needed this. I work better when I'm like regrouped, and like now, because I think when you're grinding, you almost lose sight of like what the goal is, because you're just working. So now I feel like I've like regrouped, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, regrouped. Like, let's get back. Like, I'm, back to the forefront of like what the goals are, etc. And I hope my team, I think my teammates have also been able to have that time. We've kept in touch, all of us here and there, but we've really tried to just honestly rest, because I mean, all of us one way or another have sacrificed something, or pulled something, or what. Just all of us have had something with trying to get this off the ground. So I definitely think we all just more than deserve that time, coaches included. And I think with that time away, we've been able all to regroup. There's a lot of HU26 girls who are coming in, and I know I personally am so excited for that. I love bringing new girls into this game. I think that's so important. So I'm very excited for what the future holds. Actually, right before I got onto this podcast, I was looking our emails for our fall schedule. We're in the midst of finalizing that right now. Nice. So we're playing and, getting everybody that experience, especially these incoming girls who are coming in. So I think we have a really good season ahead. I think it's going to be a really good learning season. I think it's going to be a much more settled season, because, I mean, we've learned. There's so much we've learned. And also just the preparation. I think now we know what to prepare for in a sense. Versus like I feel like last season, our inaugural season, we had
flying off the seat of your pants.
I had no idea. I mean, also I was a underclassman. I had no idea. I'm still kind of like figuring out Howard itself, figuring out DC. Now I actually kind of know my way around the city.
Nice.
I don't like just that. Like, I mean, I was still driving with GPS last season. Okay, like
I feel like there's nothing shameful that the DC's got so much traffic and so many winds and turns that you're gonna always need it. I talked to Chetta Emba about this before, and she was like, whenever she was living in DC for the living, she was just like, look, I just have to figure out how to deal with the twists and turns that go with these one ways and all these directional. It's
so that in itself, yeah, and just also like, you know, getting back on campus for the first time and like how we're still kind of figuring it out. There's just so much, so much. And I feel like now like it's just a lot. It's more settled. We have the contacts. We have like it's just settled. We know what to expect. We know like kind of when to start what conversations, like what we just a lot more settled than last season where it was just like everything from pretty much literally scratch. I mean, I don't cook, but yeah, I'm from scratch.
You were a true chef in this situation.
Seriously. So I'm very excited to not start from scratch nothing.
Word. Now, believe me, I understand this feeling so well. So well.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it easier, it just makes it simpler. And it's just like, okay, I got the system. The system is there. Just let me put the stuff into place now.
Exactly. So I'm feeling good about it. I'm hoping now again, as I said, we're really getting intertwined with student life. So I'm really hoping I think that's going to really increase our recruiting because student life always has like outreach and stuff. And I think being like in those fairs and stuff, like my goal, I would love to have an A and a B team.
I mean, if having that full team, it means that you have recruits and you have people prepping up for the next year because
people to practice against. Because like there's people who want to play but they don't want to compete. Okay, so practice, practice, and then that's helping them. That's helping them develop, and it's helping us, players who want to compete and players who are competing, develop as well because we have people to practice against and people to get reps against. And not only that, it's developing the game. Like that's how you develop the game. That's how it stays in generations to come. So yeah, that's ultimately my goal, and I think with now getting into student life, I think that goal is now more attainable than ever.
No, I like that. And look, I think especially look, you already know how to be able to communicate out this message so well. So as you create more of create more, as I say, hands for yourself, being able to have more people being able to continue that communicate, continues to roll. It just rolls.
Exactly. And I also think now difference, like last season, we didn't go in when we first started. It was just like me and Daniel, coaches. Now we have an executive board. So it's not just me pumping up the message; it's 6 other people pumping up the message.
Exactly.
And you know what? 6 hands are always better than one. I'll say this all day, every day.
Facts.
It's a group effort. So I'm very excited for what's to come.
Hey, look, I'm here for that. Hey, I'm learning that in this iteration of the HBCU Rugby Classic of being able to utilize more than just one person to do everything. It's an amazing level of stress relief. So I thank you guys very much for that one as well too. But you know, where can people find you guys and be able to?
Howard Women's Rugby Instagram. We're pretty active on Instagram. And then howardrugbyclub.org. That our website has absolutely everything, all our media appearances, games, literally everything, YouTube links, everything. So howardrugbyclub.org is where everyone can find us. Little self promo.
I was gonna say, make sure you turn it right.
Little self promo. Yes. So yeah, Howard Rugby Club. Find all our information, anything about the team, and if you want to support.
I love it. Takunda, thank you so much for coming through. I appreciated this on the realist. This was
of course. Let me know when you post this, and I will send over a picture like right now.
Absolutely perfect. And we're gonna do this again because we're definitely doing another update.
I feel like especially as time goes on, I'm always working on stuff. Right now, I am going to my junior year, so I am starting to think about like my next steps and having those conversations. So yeah, definitely, there'll be lots to update on.
Love it.
Takunda, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and being able to be on here. And guys, I thank you so much for taking the time to listen. We've got some great episodes. And of course, if you guys feel like it's relevant, please share it with friends and family. Last week we had Kisechi cheering Genji. Before we had Daniel DeValier of Howard Rugby. And we've had so many amazing guests that you guys can see. Check out the catalog, get the information, life stories, and just be able to go delve in deep into what's really happening over here. And of course, I want you guys to know, I hope that you're happy, I hope that you're healthy, and I hope that you know that you are highly favored. Until next time, cheers.